a league of leagues of their own in Europe. There's no crying in baseball. A league of their own. The Great Realignment is coming to Europe next year. All the writing is on the wall. This summer saw German Chancellor Angela Merkel survive a leadership challenge by her coalition partner Horst Seehofer over her immigration policy. She needs political wins to maintain her hold on power. Standing firm against President Trump on the Nord Stream 2 pipeline and having a cordial summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin are a good start, because most of Europe is, 1, tired of Germany setting policy for the entire EU, and 2, anti-Russian sanctions killing their trade. But week-long protests in the Saxony town of Chemnitz over the stabbing of a local man are dogging her. Germany's polling numbers are continuing to ebb away from Merkel. The more she is weakened, the more emboldened her opposition becomes. So, cue Italian Deputy Prime Minister Matteo Salvini and Hungarian President Viktor Orban. They met openly to strategize over ending open immigration into the EU. On the surface, now, Italy and Hungary seem at odds on this issue. Italy wants its borders closed and its migrants distributed throughout Europe, while Hungary steadfastly refuses to take even one migrant. This dichotomy is what the European media and politicians think will keep these two rising titans in conflict. But as Mike Shedlock recently pointed out at townhall.com, these two men have bigger goals which they are in total agreement on, securing their borders to preserve their cultural and national identities. And that's why Salvini is calling for a league of leagues across Europe. He will succeed. This is the guy who successfully rebranded the secessionist Northern League into the MIGA Party, Make Italy Great Again. Then he and Five-Star Movement leader Luigi Di Maio navigated the Italian swamp to form a government experts said couldn't work, while simultaneously neutering establishment stalking horse Silvio Berlusconi. Thanks to Salvini's strategic genius, Italian politics will never be the same again. His league now polls around 30%, which bodes well for it in next year's European Parliamentary Elections, because now his sights are no longer MIGA, but MEGA, Make Europe Great Again. Quisling European media pounce breathlessly whenever there is a perceived difference between Salvini and Di Maio, portraying the coalition as weak and tenuous. Talks between Orban and Salvini were reported alongside Di Maio's call for migrant burden sharing across the EU. Now, this is done to sow discord when there really is none. The two are in lockstep in confronting Brussels over its IMF-backed austerity program. They rightly see it as destroying Italy's economy and its culture. The program is no different than the one imposed on Greece and is destroying Argentina again, whose currency imploded last week. And they hope that this populism wave sweeping Europe is just a tantrum that eventually will end in tears. But there's no crying in power politics. Neither Salvini nor Orban are weak men given to fits of doubt, and their forming an alliance here is bigger than grandstanding on immigration policy. With Merkel weak, they will isolate French President Emmanuel Macron, make him their nemesis, and remake the European Parliament after next year's elections. Because the real goal is to take control of the European Commission Presidency, ousting the odious Jean-Claude Juncker. A League of Leagues would unite sovereigntist parties across Europe under one party in the European Parliament. The European People's Party rules alongside the Social Democrats in a German-style grand coalition that stands for nothing except more centralized control by EU technocrats, like Juncker. Salvini and Orban wanted other Visegrad countries as well as Austria to form the basis for this coalition. But is it enough? The 800-pound gorilla in this room is Alternative for Germany, or AfD. The official opposition party in the Bundestag now, AfD will pick up seats in the European Parliament where they currently have just one. They are the wild card in this gambit by Salvini and Orban. As I've discussed in the past, AfD is in the process of, quote, crossing the chasm from minor party to major one. The latest polls, now nearly a month old, have AfD polling between 16 and 18% nationally. But if the AfD has a league-like surge from the mid-teens to 30% support, Merkel's government will fail. AfD will then enter the EU Parliament with a tailwind to see Salvini and Orban's wish fulfilled. This is why the protests in Chemnitz are important. It's why AfD's rise in CSU-dominated Bavaria is so important. Public frustration with immigrant violence could shift the German electorate between now and May's elections that far as more and more Germans embrace local community pride. And I haven't even gotten to the Trump factor. The harder Donald Trump pushes EU leadership to actually lead at home, the more they are exposed as weak fools. Despite Juncker, Merkel, and Macron talking a good game, European companies are abandoning their business with Iran over Trump pulling out of the JCPOA. The more they try to scuttle Brexit and reveal themselves as anti-democratic globalists, the worse the blowback on them is getting. The new Spanish government is now willing to discuss greater Catalonian autonomy versus jailing everyone they can and cracking the skulls of old women on the streets of Barcelona. Images like that are the face of Merkel's EU. So are the people in Chemnitz, dressed in black, wearing placards with the pictures of victims of migrant violence on them in silent vigil. This isn't a tantrum. This is real emotion, real consequence, and their tears are real, and they are not for sale. The market always bets that those in power will remain in power. The euro refuses to handicap these shifts in the political winds. No one in power wants it to fall too far too fast, or like Merkel, at all. Because a strong euro to her is the main mechanism for keeping her opposition weak, blaming profligacy and sloth of Italians when it is the mispricing of Italian labor via that same overvalued euro that is the reason why Italy can't grow out of its deficits. By forming an alliance to reform the EU from within, Salvini and Orban counter that argument while taking the politically viable path given the strong popular support the EU has with many voters. It gives Salvini the cudgel to bludgeon the EU over its intransigence on budget matters. It allows him to say, see, I don't want to leave the euro, but Brussels won't negotiate for a better Italy. And given this guy's track record so far, I wouldn't bet against him making this case to angry European voters this winter. And then it'll be the globalists who will be crying.